Greetings builders, another Monday, another meta builds video. If you're new here, this video highlights 3 builds for skills that are among the most played on Crucible. If you decide that any of them should be your next PoE character, you can find the POB and complete guide in the video description. The first build is one that is being played by over 2% of high level players. I'm talking about the super strong Vaal shot Deadeye with the Ranger class. Continuing the Archer week here on the channel, let's take a look at this amazing build that uses one of my favorite skills in the whole game. Just like Lightning Arrow, this one also counts with an amazing clear speed and boss damage. To list the pros of this build, I'm going to talk exactly about that. This build is able to clear maps in less than a minute and kill big bosses in less than a second. Above all, it's also not complicated to put together. Now to list the cons, I would start with its cost. Because of Lion's Fall, this build is quite expensive right now. The price of this deal already dropped a lot, but it's still expensive. About the budget, as I just mentioned, it's an expensive build right now. You need around 5 Divine Orbs to put it together. Don't forget that on PoEbuilds.net you can find a list with all the equipments that you need to buy for this build, with direct links for examples being sold by other players. You only need 2 mandatory unique items for this build. The first of course is the Lion's Fall Jewel that grants many useful nodes on our passive tree. Next, we also need the Yoke of Suffering Amulet that causes all of your elemental damage to shock. This way our enemies take a lot more damage. For clear speed, I'll give it 10 out of 10. You fire many projectiles with high attack speed, and those projectiles return to you, piercing enemies, bouncing off walls, and you even have your mirrored archer to fire more projectiles. No one can survive that. The boss damage is also amazing and deserves 10 out of 10. Using the incredibly strong Vaal Ice Shot plus your ballistas on bosses will kill them super fast. For the survivability, I'll give this build 9 out of 10. You have armor, evasion and spell suppression that grants almost 50,000 effective HP, but the main reason why this build is safe is because you can kill everything from a huge distance. You just need to mind your position. Next, we have a skill that is being played by over 5% of high level players on Crucible, the cast on critical tornado shot Deadeye with the Ranger class. This build combines all the power of a cast on critical build with the safety of a ranged attack. It has an amazing clear speed and can deal big damage to bosses. To list the pros of this build, I would start with this amazing clear speed that you're seeing. Look how satisfying it is to cast so many ice spears from our tornado shot projectiles. I'm sure that you will love clearing maps with this beauty. This character is awesome with bosses as well. It deals a lot of single target damage even from a great distance. Now, to list the cons, I will start saying that this build isn't for everyone. You need a lot of currency to put it together. Another issue is that it isn't easy to build because it needs many specific rare items. As for budget, this build will need at least 12 Divine Orbs to put it together. As I said, it's an expensive one. You need 3 mandatory unique items for this build. The first one is the Asnaf's Mark Helmet that triggers socketed skills when you attack. This grants even more ice spears. We also need the Maloney's Mechanism. This one is the only quiver that has sockets. We're going to use those extra sockets to debuff bosses for a lot more damage. Finally, we also need 2 Intuitive Leap unique jewels to save many points in our passive tree. For clear speed, this one is surely a 10 out of 10. Clearing with this build is not only fast but also extremely satisfying. The boss damage also deserves 10 out of 10. You end up casting so many ice spears and all of them can hit the target, causing an incredible shotgun effect. For the survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. This build can do everything from a safe distance, it freezes enemies, it has a huge amount of evasion, armor and spell suppression. It will be hard to die if you always mind your position on guardians and pinnacle bosses. Finally, we have this amazing spell that is being played by over 2% of all high level players, the Spark Inquisitor with the Templar class. Spark is an erratic lightning skill that runs on the floor, killing any living thing that has the misfortune of crossing his way. To list the pros of this build, I would start with how easy and simple it is to play it. You don't need to aim or anything, just cast the Spark and they will run on their own and get the job done. This build also needs only 1 mandatory unique item and counts with great boss damage and survivability. Now to list the cons, I would point that the clear speed is not very smooth because you end up having to cast Spark many times. It's almost like a Raging Spirits build. Another issue would be the lack of evasion and spell suppression, but don't worry, we have many other defensive layers here. As for budget, you can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 85 chaos. To comfortable advance to yellow maps, you need to invest around 120 chaos, and for easily completing your Atlas, I recommend investing around 4 divines. You need only one mandatory unique item for this build, the Call of the Brotherhood Ring that converts 40% of lightning damage into cold damage. This is great because we freeze enemies for more survivability, and we also use Herald of Ice for more clear speed. For clear speed, I'll give it 8 out of 10. Spark projectiles have a long duration and pierce enemies, so after you cast them they go through a long distance, killing many of them. But since you can't control their path, you end up having to cast many times, and that might slow you down a little. The boss damage is great and deserves 9 out of 10, especially when you find yourself in a closed arena where the spark projectiles can hit the target many times. For the survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. This build comes with an amazing regeneration, healed life plus energy shield pool, high armor and block chance. This can even be better if you invest a few Chaos Orbs buying a replica Soul Terror belt for the corrupted soul. And that's it guys! Have you found your next build here? Please take a second to tell me in the comments and leave a thumbs up to support the channel. I wish you guys an amazing day, and don't forget to keep building!